Okay, where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake?
What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Today, we are chatting with Joy Vila. Before we even get started, I will show you guys her YouTube channel, Joy Vila, right there. She's been live streaming, uploading every single day. Joy has a book coming out. It's here on Kindle, available for, or on Amazon, available for pre-order. From Scientology to Christ: The Escape They Never Wanted Me to Make. Joy Vila first came to my attention when she kind of exploded on the scene by wearing these Donald Trump dresses to the Grammys and actually triggering tens of millions of people. And I remember at that time, I did a whole bunch of videos about Joy, most of them not so nice. Anyway, she's now out of Scientology. She started speaking. She's been out of Scientology for a couple years now, low key, under the radar. Started speaking about it just recently. And we are going to have an awesome conversation. So here she is, Joy Vila.
Hey, Aaron, what's up? SPTV, we doing this.
I apologize for any mean things I might have said about you in the past.
Okay, yeah, listen, guys. Aaron was my ultimate troll when I was in Scientology. I was like, this guy, he was tweeting up a firestorm when it used to be called Twitter back in the day before it was X. And I think I blocked you at one point, but you just kept popping up because people kept reposting. I was like, he's like, she's not even a Christian. She's fake MAGA. I was like, he is constantly on my ass. So, and it's pretty amazing. Now we get to chat because I'm on.
It really is. It really is. And I got to tell you, I was so convinced that your whole Christian thing was a complete act. Well, largely because as a Scientologist, I know it's not possible to be a Christian and a Scientologist. But what's been amazing listening to the interviews that you've done so far is not only did you think it was possible, they were constantly giving you grief for it.
Yeah.
And that you thought the people who were giving you grief were the ones who were wrong. And that you thought, you know, this would have been totally fine with L. Ron Hubbard. And my mind is just totally blown because the other reason I thought it was total BS is Reverend Al Freddie Johnson. I saw how Scientology used him for a couple generations now.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, look, I've never had a conversation with Reverend Al Freddie Johnson. I've always been under the impression that him pretending to still be a Christian is a complete act. It's a complete con. But now knowing how you actually thought it was possible, well, it's a weird place to start the interview, but what's your take on Reverend Al Freddie Johnson?
I know him very, very well, right? For years, he came over to my house. I volunteered with him in his different initiatives. So the mindset, to put your listeners and viewers and anyone listening, the mindset of being a Christian Scientologist is you truly think you can be both. And Scientology feeds you all their propaganda. They would show me all these, you know, policies that say you can be both. And he did the interview. L. Ron Hubbard did that interview, his only recorded interview. And he talks about we're like the religion of religions, right? Remember that with the guy who interviewed him. It's really weird with the
like on the Apollo
in the background. No, you see that
St.
one?
Hill.
Yeah, that's right. At St. Hill.
But you know the guy who did that interview was a Scientologist, right?
Yes. Well, they tell us that he became a Scientologist after that interview because of L. Ron Hubbard's brilliance. That he just that guy was like, I have to join Scientology. And then we're all like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Even L. Ron Hubbard can change the evil media. But the truth is, right, he was already a Scientologist. And that was an easy, you know, what do they call, like a soft, like a pass for him to be able to just say whatever he wants.
A softball.
Softball, yeah. So in Scientology, when you're in Scientology, they tell you can be a Christian, they tell you can be a Muslim, they tell you can be a Buddhist. And I would have conversations with other Christians. And I'm embarrassed to say, I helped get a lot of Christians into Scientology by speaking Christianese to them. And I thought I spoke 2 languages. I'm bilingual. I can do both. And truly, I thought I could do both and I can have both because one is my faith-based religion, my connection with God. and the other is my practical skills. And I truly, Aaron, believed it. It sounds ridiculous now, but that nobody told me or showed me anything that I couldn't be until it started getting pretty heavy. But that was years I was already in Scientology. And then they wanted me to tone down the Christianity. And I was like,
Right.
but I thought I could be both. And they're like, well, yes, but you're a Christian. So you're a celebrity in Scientology. You represent Scientology. They'd always tell me that to chide me for speaking too much about Christianity or asking about Christian churches. It got very hard to be a Christian Scientologist, but that was years into it after 15 years, right?
Well, and that's what's so mind-blowing to me is that they start out by trying to put you at ease, that you can be both. And then when you're publicly trying to be, they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you
Not
doing?
that much.
They're like, we meant like secretly behind closed doors. We didn't mean on Twitter.
Exactly. 100%. And I got so much in trouble, so many intensives I had to buy for tweeting one simple tweet. Hey, does anybody know of a Christian church in Tennessee? Like they printed that tweet out, gave it to me. They often did that. I got in so much trouble. I got in trouble for the tweets you would tweet about me, Aaron. Thanks a lot. I had to pay so many intensives, $5,000 a pop at Flag because of Aaron Smith-Levin. I hope you're happy.
What are they like?
They're like, control this guy. No, it wasn't just you, but it was like,
what are they like? What did you do to pull in these mean tweets?
Exactly. What are you doing? What are you saying? Why are you pulling in all these things? Because the ethics officers are sitting there in their little room, right? Just like pouncing on you every time that the tattletellers, which are Scientologists, which I believe most Scientologists are good people. They just want to help. You don't intend to join a cult, but they have so much pressure on them. I had so much pressure. You had so much pressure to follow the rules from the group standpoint. You have to, the group, the high coercion, the torture, the mental anguish that you would always have. So you have to turn in people or, turn them in or you'll be turned in. So they would turn me in by literally printing out my tweets, printing out my comments and giving them to ethics officers. And then the ethics officers would pull me in and be like, why do we have 17 reports about you, knowledge reports about you? I was like, I didn't say anything. I'm a public person and I got in so much trouble for the things other people would say about me. It was really a catch-22 because you can't do anything about that.
Well, I hope that means I'm getting Grant Cardone in a lot of trouble as well. I doubt Tom Cruise is getting in trouble for the stuff that I do, but I hope Grant is getting in an awful lot of trouble.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird in there. I know that I believe that Grant is going to run for governor because of what he's doing. I will tell you that this is my belief because
you think COB will let Grant Cardone run for governor?
Well, I think Grant's ultimate goal is to run for president and be the first I'm going to say it, the first Scientologist president. That's what he wants. I believe that.
Do you happen to know that a Scientologist has never even run for Clearwater City Council?
Isn't that crazy? But you know what? I'm sure you know that Cher's ex-husband, that Sonny Bono ran for Congress and was a Scientologist. So
obviously, I've always heard about Sonny's involvement.
Yeah.
But he also was already a huge celebrity before he ever got involved in Scientology. So, and his involvement in Scientology was kind of secret, whereas Grant Cardone's isn't.
That's true. But he doesn't talk about Scientology anymore.
But he does. I mean,
does
okay.
he?
There's major interviews on major platforms where he does. But at the same time, to concede your point, it is shocking how he doesn't talk about it so much that everybody knows he's a Scientologist.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I am shocked in every video I do about Grant Cardone, how many comments I get that are like, oh my God, I didn't know he was a Scientologist.
He loves that. He does that on purpose. He scrubbed a lot of stuff. His website used to point to Dianetics books. He would be one of the main booksellers because we told that. So now on the outside, leaving Scientology, thank you, God, and being away from that satanic cult, I can now see the tactics that were used on me. And I can also spot the tactics within people on social media and what they're doing. And I know Grant was probably under so much pressure. Like, remember Tom Cruise was under a lot of pressure when he jumped on the couch and they were like, just stop talking about Scientology. Just tell people go to Scientology.org. He had like literal direct orders. And we were told that too. He's an honorary Sea Org member. He's doing so good. But even now he just points to the website. That's the correct handling of SPs. You don't want to get caught up in. So everything that But the truth is he probably got into so much trouble because he was trying to like preach. See, you can't talk too much about Scientology, but you can't talk too little about Scientology. You can't be too Christian, but you can't be, too little bit of Christian. It's like, to tell your point about like Alfred E. Johnson, I think he's right in the middle. He's playing both his masters perfectly because he's just Christian enough. I've never been to his church. I was never encouraged to go to his
He doesn't really
church.
have a church, does he? I
I
think he's
heard
like Al
he does.
Sharpton.
I mean, there's one person I saw, but he's a reverend. Is he a reverend in good standing? What church, ordained him? Is he an actual minister? The only time I've heard him speak was in Celebrity Center, Church of Scientology, and they told me he's a reverend. So it's all, to me, I'm like, wow, so much of that is fake. And Grant Cardone plays with the fakeness too, because I read all his books and he would say, go to church. He never mentioned Scientology in his books.
That's
He
true.
said, go to church, have a family. And I was like, wow, I actually thought, is Grant also a Christian and a Scientologist? And now knowing on the outside, I'm like, he's very much a Scientologist who wants you to believe when he says church, he means a normal church with God, but he's OT8, done the L's superpower, all his whole family, right? He's OT8, I believe. He's been OT8 for a while.
You're absolutely correct. But I'll tell you, he does live streams from the Fort Harrison Hotel and from the flag building. Like,
oh yeah, he's entrenched.
I think there's a chance that I watch a lot more Grant Cardone content than you do. Like,
Probably.
he doesn't hide Scientology. You're right. He will say church instead of
But
Scientology.
who knows what Fort Harrison is besides us?
No, I know. But like, there's some huge interviews. Like Vlad TV is a big platform, and Grant Cardone has gone on Vlad when Vlad starts asking about the.
I saw your
info.
takedown of that, and I was dying laughing, Aaron. I saw your takedown, and he's asked about Xenu, and I love it. I've watched a lot of your content. That was perfect.
So the reason I say, do you think COB will let Grant Cardone run for governor, much less president, is the reason Scientologists aren't allowed to run for council here in Clearwater or even in Dunedin is because it would just serve as a lightning rod for criticism from the media. That is not, like, it's just an excuse to write an article about Scientology every single day. And then of course, they're going to ask him about Shelley Miscavige.
And you know what they're going to also ask him about is because I was going to run for Congress and they told me to stop. I was going to
Scientology did?
Florida. Yeah, they did.
There you go. There you go.
And they told me to stop and I fought them because I said, and people think, oh, Scientology puts you up to politics. Those are the two big rumors that I wasn't really a Christian because I was a Scientologist. Like I was faking it to get more Christians in. I'm sorry, I'm not that evil. I really truly believed in Scientology. I thought it was working and I thought I could be a Christian. They manipulated me and my naivete to do horrible things. I mean, I was both victim and victimizer. I was both indoctrinated and then I would help indoctrinate others. But this is how it is with gangs and cults and, trafficking and all these horrible things. When you are in that cult, you're not purely, excused from the things you're doing, but you're also purely forced to do these things. So it's to look at through the lens of compassion. Each Scientologist is victimized in that, but some people are more victimizers than being victims. There are people more at the top. I mean, Grant Cardone, Tom Cruise, these guys have way more power and influence. And so they can say some things, but then their masters, David Miscavige and the leadership is not going to let them do anything that's going to disrupt the big plan. So with me, I had a lot of power when I was a celebrity, but I thought I was using them as much as they're using me. I was like, this is great, opening doors, right? Using all these services, people helping me and doing all these things. But when it came down to being purely, individualized, like I want to run for Congress because people I want to make a change and people are asking for it. And I have connections with Trump and this could be beautiful. I talked to Ivanka, I talked to the administration. They were like, run, run, run. But when it came time to run, they came down so heavy on me, Aaron. They said, you cannot do it. They threw the book at me. They finally told me you can't because they tried to show me references. And I would say, but LRH doesn't say. I knew the tech. I learned it. I studied it so I could try to outsmart them. But I was stuck in this whole system. You
have to tell me what the references and the reasons they were giving you for telling you that you couldn't run for Congress.
So they show me all the references where L. Ron Hubbard says that Scientology is non-political, right? I'm sure you've read those. And I don't have the memory like you do. You were like spitting out I'm like, damn, he's so good at that. I forgot a lot of this stuff. either it was forced on me to remember it. And I think some of the trauma, I'm like, I don't want to remember it. But there's a ton of references. All the Scientologists know this. You read it. I think, yeah, they talk about Scientology is not non-political, right? So they would show me those, and I had to word clear them, study them. This was in Celebrity Center. And
But that's also kind of stupid though, because Scientology being non-political is not the same thing as a Scientologist running
that's
for political
exactly what
office.
I said. That's what I told them. I said all these references because I was spicy. I'd say this doesn't say a Scientologist. I can be political. And finally, Cassie was her name. She was the president of CC, the interim president. They're always going through different presidents. They always have vice presidents. And in the president's office, the celebrity center's celebrity portion, they pulled me in there and they said, we're asking you not to. And the biggest thing, because also the Office of Special Affairs that I visited many times in Washington, D.C., straight out told me why. They said, OSA is overblown with Leah Remini's show. We cannot afford to have another fallout. I'm telling you, that show hit Scientology so hard. I was in Scientology during this time, and it hit them so hard, right? And then they basically told me they can't control the narrative about the Guardian's office, because I was going to run for Congress of, I thought, Clearwater. This would be great. Thank God I didn't get elected. That would have been a nightmare.
You were going to run for the district that includes Clearwater?
Yeah, and Paulina Luna, who's who I know.
I mean, I've got Anna Paulina Luna's number. She was supposed to come to one of my fundraisers when I was running for city council.
Does.
But then, what's that?
I know her. I hope she does. You can
No. I mean, I'm not going to run for council again, but I think she got word that I was the anti-Scientology guy and she didn't show up.
Oh, she doesn't always show up to a lot of events though, because I've been in a lot of events she's invited to, and she's very busy. But I met her at the White House during her campaign, the Hispanic Heritage Month, and love her, love what she stands for. She's a firecracker. If she could see how dangerous Scientology is, I think she would be on our side,
I have it from inside sources that she's taking that Trish Duggan money.
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, God.
Yeah. So you were going to run for the congressional seat that has Clearwater in it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that they said, don't do it.
Yes, you would think. And that sounds almost like Scientology's the good guys in that way. Like, don't they want more power and control? Because they couldn't control me. If I had gotten elected, what if I talked about God and Jesus? And what if now I had too much power, right? I would have too much power without them.
So let me ask it to you this way then, because it seems like they were giving you references that honestly, they were beating around the bush. They were giving you BS reasons, right? And it sounds like even that, we can't control the narrative around the Guardian's office. I don't know. It seems like kind of a BS reason to me. Do you suspect what the real reason they don't want a Scientologist running for Congress is? Because I'm sure it wasn't, we don't want Joy Vila running for Congress.
No.
They don't want a Scientologist running for Congress.
Otherwise, they would put people in there. God, I don't know. Like, that's a hard question. I think they want absolute control. Also, if somebody did run for Congress, you're now, I mean, honestly, the bad PR about it would, I think, explode. I think if you did have a Scientologist there,
Exactly,
because they tried to do it, they already tried to sneak people in the Guardian's office. They already tried to, create this underground. They have so much bad blood there that all of this would explode. And they don't want any black PR. They don't want any bad PR, any attention. So
right.
Even when they had to attack Leah Remini, that gave her more attention, and they knew that. So there's always this evil. How can we weave and deceive? I call it, and I talk about it in my book, because I talk about the witchcraft originations of Scientology, and how when I found that out, I was sick to my stomach, and how much it makes sense how they bewitch people and they do rituals where you repeat things on the wall, like all these TRs and all of these things that they do. These are very ritualistic. They call it a science. They say L. Ron Hubbard was an engineer. He was not an engineer. He was, a two-bit, con artist who studied witchcraft.
So everything that we just discussed, though, about them basically telling you you're not running for Congress.
Yeah.
Why do you think, or why do you suspect that COB might let Grant Cardone run for governor of California?
I don't know what goes on the inner workings. I think that he's going to have to try to campaign to be able to run, because that's how I thought in my head. I could be wrong, but I see what he's doing. You've seen his Make California Great Again campaign, right? You've seen that?
But you want to know what I make of that?
Yeah.
Grant Cardone is a lot of things. One thing, he's a lot of negative things. The one positive thing he is an expert marketer.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole, he runs the whole, the circuit. He's doing the whole podcast circuit. He's doing the YouTube circuit. He's doing the Piers Morgan circuit. He's doing the Fox News circuit. It's really good marketing for Grant Cardone to pretend like you're going to run for governor.
But he also wants power. And if you were to run, I think, okay, I could be wrong, but I do think he's going to try to run, whether he's going to be successful or not. Because if he can sway David Miscavige and say, listen, I'm OT8, I'm going to donate more, I'm going to get us in good. This is what I thought. I was like, oh, we could get in good with the White House. We get in good. This would be great. Back then it was, people laughed at me. They're like, why are you giving way to happiness to the White House staff? I did that, right? Awful. But this is a new generation. We do have Trish Duggan. We do have all these people who've infiltrated. This is just what I'm thinking. I just, the signs I see, I'm like, that's what I picked up on, that he's going to run for governor, or he's going to try to make a play to run for governor. Or you could be right. It could be a PR stunt that where they want people to say, we need Grant Cardone as governor. Because I see all the comments and I can see the whispers. And the fact that he's spoken at one of the Trump rallies, he's in with a lot of MAGA people. His wife now is talking. Elena is talking so much. I'm the stay-at-home wife. I supported him. They're just espousing so many conservative talking points that I'm like, all he has to do is show a bunch of stats to the right person in Scientology. He might even get that, CSW approved to run.
Yeah, I've said that if Grant actually runs, which I predict he will not. I mean,
I hope he doesn't. I hope you're right.
I hope he does.
You hope he does? I hope I'm wrong, because
he won't win. He won't win. But
that's true.
For the same reason that Miscavige or OSA, which is the same thing, or the president's office didn't want you to run for Congress, is the same reason I want Grant Cardone to run for governor. Is exposed. Wall-to-wall exposure. I said I will relocate to California. I will join the press pool. I will go on the bus. I will follow him around. I will make his life a living.
You will tweet his ass.
I will tweet up a storm.
Y'all know he can tweet up a storm. Aaron does not back down.
Yeah, Grant Cardone, man, what a clown.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. There is a lot of questions he will get. I got a lot of questions about the forced abortions and a lot of things from a lot of conservative media that pushed back, thankfully, but it was hard. I think that's also why I think had I run maybe a better campaign with making Scientology look better, maybe they would have let me run. You see, because OSA, they showed me a lot of things. They're like, OSA is getting so many reports about you. And they showed me all kinds of stuff, like a word bubble. And they're like, see this word bubble here with Scientology? They're tracking all these things. And this was in 2018. They're like, the biggest bubble is Joy Vila in Scientology. And that's not what they wanted. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you guys, I didn't know they were worth billions of dollars too. They could have totally done something. But anyways, I thought they were fools at the time. I said, I can be an asset. I can help. We're going to clear the planet. I want to help you guys do that. It was very tough. It was very hard. And I actually, anyways, I'll let you ask the questions, but that was a very hard time in my life.
Well, if there's a reason, and again, I'm still predicting Grant will never run for governor. It's just a PR ploy. Scientology will never let him. But if there's a reason that they make an exception, and if I have to come up with a reason why they would let him and not you, they would have seen your continued adherence to Christianity.
Oh yeah.
As a huge, huge, huge liability, not necessarily even about what you would say or what you would do, but that no matter what you said or did in Scientology, the fact that you were still holding on to this belief in Christianity made you not really a Scientologist, at least what they would be saying behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because obviously, in many respects, you were more dedicated than almost any other celebrity. Give me another celebrity that's a Class 5 auditor, not Tom Cruise. Not Tom Cruise. Not Grant Cardone, but so if there's a reason, like I think they do believe Grant Cardone's a diehard dedicated Scientologist, and that's why they let him get up to OT8, whereas they wouldn't let you get through your OT eligibility or your OT preps. Right.
Yeah, you nailed it. And I never even got on Elledge, and I said, why? They just kept saying, okay, now do your internships, finish your internships, now do the next internship. It was such a torture. Like if you really want to torture somebody, it's not even like, it's like tell them that they can get something, give it to them easily in the beginning, and then make it hard for them to get it once they really want it.
Yeah.
And I was like, why now that I really want this? Because at first I was kind of dilettante on Scientology. I mean, I was dedicated, but then once my artist career took off and it was there, I was like kind of worshiped and lifted up for being more of a face of it. They put my face everywhere. And then once I became a celebrity, I felt like the PR duty I was doing was enough to, that I didn't have to go on course all the time. So it would be like every couple months. But then as it got more in, I thought, well, I need to be dedicated to this because this is changing the world. And then I personally made it my crusade. And then I started training and doing more and taking PCs and volunteering. And it's like the more that I committed to it, the more they kept it away from me. And I was trying to prove myself to them because I thought, let me on my OT levels. I want that ultimate power, that ultimate release. I want everything to be good in my life. Like you say, I want what Scientology has to offer. I want to clear the planet. It was insane, as you know. It was so painful to be denied it that it was almost worse than almost anything I've experienced. Like that psychological torture was really rough.
Yeah. No, I know.
It was hurting too to not have it. I thought that was what's going to cure my depression and my suicidal thoughts and the death feeling that I always had on me that wasn't good enough. I could never make it. That, I'll never make it. Like it was so heavy. It was so intense and dark. I thought I have to go OT. This is my OT case. I want to get rid of this case. Help me get rid of this case.
Yeah. I got to tell you, as heart-wrenching as it was for you to be put through all that psychological torture with the carrot being dangled in front of you of getting onto the OT levels, there might be an argument to be made that thank God you didn't get on them. But, because then you'd be, spend the next 10, 15 years, telepathically exercising demons. And that creates like a disassociative disidentity disorder in so many Scientologists.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jesus, that I didn't get on. It's so true. I bought my OT levels twice.
Yeah.
And had it drained, all those finances drained and used for more preps. How
about the irony that Jesus is literally what saved you from the OT levels? Get it?
I think they said it was an implant. Exactly.
Come on. Right? Am I only cracking myself up here?
Hey, Ron, I think that is.
Your belief in Jesus is why they wouldn't let you on the OT levels. He literally saves you from it.
That's true. That's so true. Actually, you're right. Like and I didn't know this at the time because I'm like, you're telling me I can be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true because I would have spent even more money and more time and more dedication and be more lost and more trauma. Imagine having my little briefcase around. I thought they were so cute with their little OT7 packs.
That's like the
around
Scientology clout chasing. That's the ultimate Scientology clout chasing.
Oh my God, it is.
And it's freaking attached to your wrist like
Everyone
you're carrying the nuclear football.
These young people who have them, I'd be like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't like, how did they get the money? Because I was like, I'm scrappy. I'll get the money. I make the money. And then my ex-husband had money. So we had money to spend. And I would open up credit cards to do it. And the IAS donations, I went really broke for. But I was like, how do I get to that level? Because at first it was the money. And then when they know the money was easy for me it wasn't easy, but it was like achievable. Then it was you more effort. They play it so expertly in Scientology. They manipulate you so well. They have folders and folders on how you operate. They've been doing this for so long. They know exactly how to pull the strings and what string will make you dance the way they want you to dance.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yes.
Did you catch my video? What's today? Wednesday? Maybe last week. Speaking to a fresh 30-year Sea Org vet from the Flag AO, Tom Cruise has never finished OT7.
Yes, I caught that. I was shocked.
So did you think he was OT8? Did you think he was OT8?
Yes, of course. I also thought he was class 5, OT8, both internships finished. Like I thought this guy was top of the pops. Of course, I thought he was OT8.
I wonder if people in Scientology, well, I mean, I'll ask you, but people who were, in your crowd, was there any suspicions whether Tom Cruise was actually OT9 or 10? Any
That's
whispers? Any whispers? Because in
we
the
all
Sea
thought
Org,
David Miscavige is. That's a sure. That's a
in the
confident.
Sea Org, we thought Miscavige was doing OT 9 and 10.
Oh, absolutely. That was like, oh, he's obviously OT 10.
Yeah.
And you know, people are doing preps for OT 10. You know that 9 and 10.
15 years ago, I had friends who were going to the ship and doing their OT 9 and 10 Elledge.
What a money grab! Can you imagine the intensive? So you'll appreciate this. I did about 12. I think it was 12 or 13 intensives of FPRD.
For your preps?
Nobody.
For your OT preps?
No, just yeah, for my preps, but also over my bridge. But it was for my preps, yeah, because it was after I was clear. So that's right. I was CS for 2 to 4, and 2 to 4 turned into about 13 intensives of FPRD. And Aaron gets it, but for those who don't get, that's intense whole track sec check, which is interrogation. And I'm telling you, we went over and over and over. It was the most painful thing. And people I would tell that to, and they'd be like, not even I've had that many, and I'm in the Sea Org and I'm an executive. They're like, people would look at me like, because that you don't, unless you like, you know, you'd have to like done some crimes, like stole some money within Scientology or like nobody gets that many intensives.
So question, was it tailor-made FPRD or was it all the dynamic forms and the basic form?
It was a good question. This is the first time I've ever talked about it in this much detail because I can with you, and your audience is used to hearing this, right? So it doesn't alienate them.
They're not used to being this deep into the weeds.
Okay, they gotta clear their words. Okay, they're gonna
I can explain it later.
So I did the basic form, which is, you know, everybody does it, with this old lady at AOLA. And she would ask me detailed questions about my masturbation. Detailed.
My pearls.
She's a little old grandma, and she'd be like, "Did you come?" And I'd just be like, "I cannot believe." And she's like, "Did you come?" And she had her little granny cheeks, apple cheeks, and literally white hair pinned at the top and pearls. She looked like Mrs. Claus. And I was just like, I used to laugh about that actually behind closed doors. People probably wrote me up.
What is Miscavige's obsession with masturbation? And I say Miscavige because the auditors drilling down on the details that was not like that before the first
There's
Gold
only
check.
one reference on it. There's that one page where
confession of procedure or something else.
No, on actual masturbation because it
pain and sex.
No, not even pain and sex. There's that because pain and sex doesn't talk about masturbation. Trust me, I was word clear on that reference about 25 times. That was all ethics program, pain and sex. I was like, bring it on. At first it scared me. And then I was like, guess what? I get it. Yes, opposite. Pain and sex. Let's go. I didn't even care. I was like, whatever, because for me, I was like, whatever gets me through the day to get to my OT levels, to get me free, to help others. I was so determined. And I was like, whatever, bring it on, bring it on. And even the intensives, they got really intense and really bad. But I did the basic form. And then I thought, okay, great. Next is OT levels. And then I got into politics and I became a celebrity. And then through all of this, like my star rose, and I was about to do my OT levels at Flag. I was actually on Elledge at Flag, and they pulled me off to do another ethics program. And I never left that ethics program. So then it was tailor-made. It was 2D form, of course. Mm-hmm. L's, by the way, are just intense. More ethics pulling.
Just more whole track sec checking.
Just more whole track freaking sec checking. And they love all the nitty gritty stuff. And they would pull out all my folders of like, oh, well, you ran over these overs. And I was like, but we already ran those. We ran those flat. Like I'd be very straight in session. And I know you talked about you hated going into session. I too loved session because I thought I'm getting help. And I'd always get this high at the end. And I love my auditors, and I felt like someone's finally listening to me and talking to me and telling me I'm a good girl. Like I was so desperate for that attention inside the sessions. I was so desperate, and I was crying.
Somewhat when I would see public just like craving auditing sessions, I felt like I was in the upside down world. You know, I was like, these motherfuckers actually pay for this shit and they like it. Like I don't get it.
I know it's like it's therapy on a whole nother level, but it's so insidious and evil because they're truly, I believe I was hypnotized somewhat by auditing. not in the hypnotism that Scientology would say, but it does hypnotize you. It glamours you because you're like, oh wow, they're listening to me and they're looking at you. And I'm trained in those techniques. So, and they're giving you the exact facial expressions. And then you're like, okay, what do I need to say to make it? And then it's like this weird, like you get into this weird spiritual thing where you want to say the right thing. And guess what? I always knew how to make my needle flow. I knew how to do it when I wanted to get out of session. So I was controlling it. And then I was like, but I'm not, because no, L. Ron Hubbard couldn't be wrong. It was so much of a trap. I'd get so deep into it, but I wanted that high. I wanted that hit. For me, it was a drug because I wanted that release. I wanted to be also told, thank you. Your needle is now floating. And I wanted to, I'm a good girl. I'm clean. I'm cleansed. I wanted that so bad when it's a lie. You can't pay for your sins to be cleansed. There's no way that none of that is godly. None of that is factually helpful or therapeutic. The one thing is that if you tell somebody things you felt bad, that is a bit of therapy. So there is a therapeutic element to doing that. You can tell that to a friend. You can tell that to someone who's not going to take thousands of dollars. They don't offer anything unique. But the fact that I never went to therapy before, didn't do confessional things like that. I wasn't raised Catholic. So it felt so unique for me at 23 until it didn't help. And they kept using it against me. They'd bring up my old things I would say. And I thought, well, I thought this. And then, you get those SEC checks where you're not forgiven at the end. It's a SEC check. It's not a grade 2. And you're like, oh, I don't even get the forgiveness at the end. This is going to be held against me. And they tell you that this is not, and then this is not an auditing session, right? Then you're like, oh, I'm not even auditing. It's just grilling you and you're paying for it.
Yeah. I don't spend a lot of time in my videos really talking about the structure of an auditing session. But it is noteworthy that generally speaking, a normal average auditing session done the right way with a willing cooperative PC ends in this euphoric. It's like a state of euphoria.
It is. It's a drug. It's a high. It's an absolute, you nailed it. It's a state of euphoria. That's why I know that finding out that it's based in witchcraft, I'm like, there is a bit of spell casting there. There is that control to where you also feel like, oh, wow, I can release. There's this weird spiritual control thing where you do, and you trust somebody so much, and they put you, and when you cry, you get release, right? If you cry a sad movie, you can cry, you go, oh, wow, a good song gives you release. So detailing the deepest, darkest things, and then having someone else listen and take it in calmly does a world of benefit in some way. And that's what kept me going. It kept me coming back. They dangle a bit of truth wrapped in crap, right? It's a little bit of chocolate covered in poop.
It's true. It's true. I do try to be as fair as possible when describing the lower levels, particularly of Scientology, and make the point that, like, guys, look, if there was nothing at the lower levels that people found helpful, nobody would ever join and get sucked into this thing,
Exactly. That's how they get you. And then once you're clear, I never had a happy day after clear. Never had a happy day. That was all trauma. Superpower was awesome when I was doing it, because you're like in a playground and it's all white and you get to smell the smell, differentiate, tell what time. You do feel like a superhero. You're like, whoa, I paid $20,000. I'm a superhero. Whoa. You're wearing your little suit and it feels amazing. And then you get the praise for doing it. I was also addicted to the praise of the group for every level I completed. And I one time asked them, I said, do I have to write a success story? Because I didn't feel exactly like it was success, but I was like, whatever, I'll go to the next level. I just want to get to the next thing. I forgot what it was. It was one of my preps, because then it was just endless preps for years. I was in preps for like 7 years.
I mean, technically, after you attest to clear, everything that happens after that is technically preps if you're at the right org and on the right program.
Yeah.
And when you said
I tested clear in 2016.
Okay. And was that at Celebrity Center?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoke
at graduation.
Who was your auditor there?
That was Caesar. Caesar. What's his last name? Cesar.
I may not know his last name, but
yeah,
there are people out there who will.
Villanueva. Cesar.
That makes sense. Cesar Villanueva.
I think that's his last name. I can't believe I forgot his name. I used to see his certificate on the wall. Class 9 auditor. I had class 9s. Yep. I had class 9s.
At CC.
OT7. So what a lot of people don't know is celebrities get class 9s because we're so messed up, I guess.
I mean, Class A is supposed to be, you're supposed to be a Class 8 at CC. That doesn't mean you couldn't be a Class 9, but they really want, I mean,
I
because you
never met
realize,
any Class 8s at CC. I only met
you want to know
got
why?
audited by
Do
Class
you want to know
9.
why? Because they stopped delivering the Class 8 course.
Yep.
And so the Class 9 auditors trained since Golden Age of Tech 2 at least, they don't do Class 6 and Class 8. They do Grad 5, Class 9.
Yep. And to the public, the highest level you can get is Class 5. So I reached the highest level I could get as public because they stopped doing Grad 5. I wanted it. I wanted all. I was like, I want to be a Class 8 is supposed to be the highest in the public, but they stopped it at Class 5 to just redo it. That's what they tell us to get it, get all the SPs out of it. I'm like, how do these SPs keep, whatever? It's just, you just believe it. You stop questioning it. If I question, it's another intensive. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Okay, I heard you on your last 2 interviews mention the name of your MAA at CC. Who was that again, though?
Ellery. That was Ellery.
Ellery. What's her last name?
Yeah.
If you don't remember, that's okay.
I don't remember. But,
okay, Ellery. Yeah. And who was your main terminal in the president's office?
That would have been. God, I didn't know you were going to ask me specific questions. I would have
if you don't remember, that's okay. I'm just wondering.
No, I don't remember, but I know what they moved around a lot of the terminals, but and last names we didn't really know because Sea Org members don't you know them by their first name and their post, right?
I see, yeah.
But I mean,
wait. Someone's asking, I don't know if this is a joke, but Caesar Flickerman, is that a joke?
No. Caesar he also has Villa in his name, but he's Mexican, he's from Mexico. And he such a sweetheart. Oh my gosh, it breaks my heart. That's why I say don't attack Scientologists and Sea Org members especially, because he's OT7 and older man in his 50s, tall, very tall guy, glasses, very fatherly, right? And God, it would be hard to run certain overts with him because I was like, I know, right? Oh, this is like talking to my dad. My dad's a Latino gentleman. And I'm like, this is so embarrassing. But my dad wouldn't be like this. But he was very stern and he'd use his glasses. And so OT7 and Class 9 auditor, which means he can deliver OT5, which is not delivered at Celebrity Center. But this is what they're all trained super high to deliver to celebrities.
And that's why I said not only do they not need to be a Class 9 at CC, but it's actually kind of a waste of an auditor because that person should be at the AO.
I didn't even realize that until I started training at an AO. And I was like, oh, and people would be like, why was your auditor Class 9? I was like, well, I don't know. I thought that was normal. So in that way we were spoiled at Celebrity Center. But he used to tell me, he's like, when I feel bad, and this breaks my heart, he would say, not bad, but he would say, when I'm not on staff, I'm not working on my times off, which he'd work 12 hours a day. He would say, I'd watch funny movies. I like to watch animal movies, animal videos of animals, interspecies animals, like a cat and a dog best friends, YouTube videos. And I just remember being like, oh, wow. Now I think of, oh my God, that's the only thing he has outside of Scientology. He doesn't see his family. He was public. He had a radio show and then he was recruited into the Sea Org. He's married in the Sea Org. His whole world is the Sea Org in a room, 12 hours a day, auditing and writing up sessions. And that's all he's allowed to do. It is a horrible existence. This poor guy, and he's supposedly OT7, Class 9 has all this influence and all of this oh, wow. But he can't do anything with his life. He doesn't see any of those thousands of dollars. At least if you were paying you go to therapy, your therapist gets that money. They don't get the $200 an hour, $300 an hour. They get $50 a week. And he's crazy, so trained. It's insane. It's torture. Those people are deceived. And we need to demolish this cult. It's really dangerous.
Yeah. So you attested to clear at CC, did OT preps. It sounds like all over the place, but that you actually
I did.
So they let you onto your OT eligible at Flag. Where did you attest to completing OT preps, at Flag or in AOLA?
So at AOLA, I attested to completing OT preps, and then I purchased all my OT levels. And then they said, because things would happen, scandals would happen. Aaron would tweet again. No, I'm just kidding. That's just you. But, and Tony Ortega would write an article about me, but they'd always bring me in. And then OSA got on me really hard. And they said, every time you do an interview, you need to tell OSA who the interviewers are. Because now I was in the spotlight. I was clear I was not a celebrity. I was an artist. I was a rising star. I toured, but I was like underground rock and roll singer, songwriter, model. Like I'd done artistic things. They were like, "Ooh, yeah." But then when I did the Grammys and was now in this whole new world and like on the President of the United States attention and doing all these things, it was a very different of like, okay, now we need to tighten up. Like, who are you talking to? Who are these people? They were like, who's Roger Stone? Tell us all about him. They'd pull me in regularly for me to brief them on who these people were. And it would be by my ethics officer. And I have to safe point them on who's safe pointed in Washington, in the people I'm talking to in Hollywood. And it just became so tedious. But see, they would pull me in for regular, they said, do your training. And so then training took the place, and then they would pull me in for regular sec checks just to like, I didn't even know what it was. They never even told me.
But hold on a second. So it wasn't even OSA that was trying to debrief you on the politics stuff. It was your MAA who doesn't know shit about shit.
But they're Los Angeles, so they work directly with OSA. And
was it Julian?
No, but I knew Julian. Yeah.
Was it Smith? There's a girl in the ethics officer. Her last name is Smith. Teresa Smith. Who's your MAA at AOLA?
No, at AOLA. Ooh.
Is that who you said would pull you in? And
no, that was at CCN. So I finished my preps. I did my preps at CC, which is actually illegal according to their own standards. I should have, but CC wanted a money grab, so they put me with the class 9. They charged me more than you normally would. Or no, they said it's only 3,500 in intensive rather than at AO, right? So it was like, oh, you get a discount, and so we just bought blocks and blocks of hours. And we ended up draining our intensive money, me and my ex-husband at the time. I ended up draining mine from my personal preps that were done at CC. And then I went to AO at first to do my basic form, and I thought I was going to do OT level. So finally, when I was like, well, if I can just do my preps at CC, and then when they told me you need to train, I just did the rest of my stuff at CC because that was my home org. It was more, so I did all my ethics stuff at CCN, and they were like, they put me in the celebrity course room, and I was like, oh, there's Carrie Kasem, and then, oh, welcome to this room, and it was different. And I was like, oh, there's 2 course rooms. It was a entirely different thing, but I was treated well on one end. And then we were living at CCN, by the way. So it's much easier to just go downstairs in that beautiful castle.
How long were you living there?
6 years on and off. Because I split
really
my time.
Worse? Someone said that to me. Someone said that to me, and I was like, no, I think you misheard her.
6 years.
What?
About $7,000 a month to live in that hotel. And so you remember,
how much a month?
About 7,000 for the room we rented.
Wow.
That I had Kirstie Alley's designed room. There's an interview with Leah Remini when she was in Scientology. She's in that room and has paisley blue, light blue wallpaper. It's beautiful. It's upstairs and a downstairs. There's a kitchen, full kitchen, the whole thing. That Kirstie Alley, who was a friend of mine too, before she passed away, she designed that whole room. She designed it long before I met her, like in the 90s. And it really is flamboyant and gorgeous, and a French castle and all of the things. And they have room service and all of the things, right? And so I lived there. Also, because my ex-husband really liked living there. And so, that was our home. And I split my time between there and Denmark. And then the tours I went on a multi-country tour. I would tour 25 countries a year doing my music and modeling and helping with his photography business. So we were working a lot. So that took us away from Scientology in those times. And then they started coming in hard, like, okay, we get it. You're doing your tour. We get it. You're doing this, but you need to now do this. You need to now do this. And then that's when it became really difficult. I went to Flag because I thought, you know what, LA doesn't get me. I'd always play the orgs against themselves because I thought it's that org. I would run into problems and issues, and I'd be like, there's something wrong with that org. Like AOLA is not understanding. CC is my home. And then CC was like, okay, but they couldn't do more after, they tried to keep me on. So I did some training, but I was like, I'm going back to Flag. So then at Flag, I did Superpower, Cause Resurgence, all 3 L's. And that took its time. And then that just exploded things. And then I didn't do as much bridge for a few months, but then they would be like, okay, come back. Now you got to do your next step. Now you got to do your next step. And then,
right.
So there's always this push pull of do your next step. But then I would also be like, oh, but I'm also an artist and a professional. So I got to do my career. So it was always fighting against. So, but it tightened up until 2020 is when I chose to go into the bubble and go to South Africa to finish my training.
So let's take a step back though. Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
So if you did your preps at CC, attested to completing preps at AOLA, there's a reason I'm going down this route here.
Okay.
and then you get onto your OT Elegit flag, and then they pull you off Eleg for an ethics cycle. See, this is all fascinating to me for a number of reasons. The
Yeah.
fact that they let you attest to preps and start Eleg means they satisfied for themselves, at least in LA, maybe they revisited it at flag. They satisfied their concerns about you and Christianity and praying, because that's stuff that gets taken up on preps, not Eleg.
Right.
So I'm curious, because and Eleg is basically just an actionable sec check. So why would they take you off Eleg, mid Eleg, for an ethics cycle that was basically the beginning of the end? What were they trying to handle you on there?
Okay, so that's when a huge scandal broke out. And I was at Flag during that scandal, and the scandal is bona fide. I don't like to talk about it, but I'll talk about it because it's known that was when Corey Lewandowski smacked my butt, and I made a police report about it. And I took a media interview and talked about it. And that went viral. And I got pulled in by my ethics officer, Clemence, the MAA, lead MMA at Flag. And she was like, "What the hell? You look like a victim." And I got cussed out and thrown off of flag lines. And
that's what they were upset about, that you were portraying yourself as a victim?
Not that he had done it. And I had OT8s on my side, like, we're going to hire a PI. Like, see, the Scientologists were so kind to me. This is what was so hard and why I stayed so long, even when it got bad. But then there would always be pressure from the top, and I'd be like writing reports to try to prove my point. And I was like, I just need to communicate. I just need to solve it. I just need to fix this. They just don't understand where I'm coming from. I get it. It was so intense, Aaron. I got thrown off of flag lines. I was crying. I had a panic attack. They pulled me into the flag president's office. And even now I feel the physical effects of it, because my ex-husband and my former stepdaughter, who was special needs, who autistic, and they tried to like fix her with so much, that poor girl. But they told me I have to leave. I have to leave right now off of flag lines, because that article was viral. And I got in so much trouble for that. And
this is
that was
another example
during,
where I feel like what they're telling you is one thing, but like the reality on the the undercurrent, the real undercurrent is something different. So we all both know that in Scientology, being a victim is low on the tone scale, and it's not responsible, and it's not cause over life, but it's not kick you out of flag. It's not get kicked out of flag stuff. I mean, were they concerned? Did they say anything to you like,
the
hey,
prep.
you're creating flaps, you're creating bad PR with like
Yes.
the president of the United States administration?
Well, not about the president. They were concerned about them, because every time someone would mention it, it was a trending news story. It was in December when nobody was talking about anything. Trump hadn't done anything that they were still talking about. He was already president. This is the end of 2017. And by the way, what happened is I got invited to a Trump elites, like, who work in the administration, because I was a part of the Trump advisory campaign, where I was a campaign advisory member, which is, you don't get paid, but you're like, you represent. They put me on Fox News a lot to talk about certain talking points. You get invited to certain briefings, and it was very cool. It was awesome. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. A small town girl who grew up broke. Like, I didn't think I was going to get in politics, but they embraced my way of life and what I was saying. And then I got very good at politics. I didn't like being political, but then I was like, well, shoot, this is changing lives. And if my message can help people, then, and I don't care if people agree with my politics or not, but at the time, and I still am very conservative, but I'm not very political. I think politics is overblown and we have fatigue from it. But at the time I was like, this is awesome. I'm changing lives. And so I got invited to this at the Trump Hotel in DC. It was the Trump Hotel at the time. Now it's just the old post office building. That place was so awesome. And then we were in this huge ballroom, and I was there with Trump's lawyers and everybody, and the president and Melania. No one was really taking pictures because we were all too cool for school. And so I was there, and there's only like 100 of us, less than 100 of us. And Corey Lewandowski was there, and he was drunk, and he started talking to me. It's the first time I met him. And he used to be Trump's campaign manager. And he had 2 big bodyguards near him. And he was like, he was chatting with me. He's like, oh, Joy Vila, yeah. And he grabbed me for a picture, and we took a picture. And then he's like, whoa. And he smacked me on my butt. And I was like,
Just like in front of,
in front of everybody, Aaron. And I
Correct.
was like, this is in the middle of Me Too, by the way, circa end of 2017.
I'm
Me
sorry.
Too is everywhere, everywhere, right? I mean, I was like, what the hell? And I'm like, it's not a nightclub. It's like, it's not, you know, I mean, literally everybody's in like suits. And I was like, it wasn't a red carpet flashy event. This was a very upscale, like everybody there, Jared, you know, the president's daughters and sons, and like Kushner was like, it was, and you know, we had like some music and performance from a gospel singer. And then it was just very like, very DC elite, very chill. This isn't some drunk backwoods event. And he was wasted. He smacked me and I said, hey, watch it. I could report you for sexual harassment. You better watch it. And what I do is like, if somebody does something, I give them the like mom finger and the look like, hey, knock it off, be a gentleman. And I did that to the press at the White House lawn a few years ago too. And it went viral, but I will put people in their place because I'm like, no, you're going to respect me. That's not okay. And then what he does is he smacks me again.
No.
I kid you not. He smacks me again and says, go ahead. I work for the private sector.
Oh my God. And so who did you report it to?
I talked to Roger Stone about it because he was working on my campaign at the time. He was helping me on my congressional run. And I was in the middle of about to run for Congress. I never started the congressional run. I did the exploratory committee, which is what you have to do. You have to raise $5,000 from small donations and then file the paperwork, the FEC, blah, 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 put your team together. So I was in that process, but I was already on Fox News. They're already like, Joy Villa, will you ever run for president? Like they loved it, right? So it was very, very well documented and it was very well publicized. So it took off very quick because I was the Trump dress girl and the president started tweeting me and it was just like huge. And then when he did that, I was so shocked. I told my husband at the time, he was furious. He wasn't at that party because we weren't allowed to have a +1. It was just that, you know, it was like invite for you only. I still have my little lanyard somewhere that says it and it, you know, has stars on it. And so he did that and I was shocked and I was embarrassed. And then the guy who introduced me to him hurried me away and was like, and I said, did that really happen? And he goes, yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. And then I pretended like nothing happened because I was in shock. And I was processing it. And I felt so humiliated at the time because I'm like, there's no way this guy did this. And I'm like, should I say, I wish I could have said, hey, this guy just smacked my butt. Like coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Was he married?
He's married with like 6 kids.
Oh my God.
It's disgusting. It's the guy is disgusting. And so I told Roger Stone, I told my ex-husband at the time. And then Roger told me and I don't want to get in trouble with Roger. I love Roger. He said, don't say anything. He said, don't say anything. Don't say anything right now. So I waited for 30 days. I didn't say anything. It was during Halloween. No, it's during Thanksgiving that it happened. And like November 29th, it happened. Something like that. November 27th, November 29th. And then it wasn't until December. So it was just a month later. Political called me while I was at Flag on my OT about to start eligibility. Right. So I was like in the process, I'd come in, routed in and having the, you know, and eligibility. And they said, Political called me and said, hey, we have 2 eyewitness reports of what happened at the Trump Hotel. Would you like to comment? And they had all the details. So I was like, I'm just going to lend my name and legitimize it because Me Too movement. Hello. And this is disgusting. Yes, of course. He's a pig. There's no way that's okay. So I just said yes. And then that went out like the next day or next couple of days. It went viral. And all of it came back to Flag. And I'm on lines there. And she's like, you know, you look like a victim. I can't, like, I read it. And I thought they were going to be on my side. I really thought they were going to be like, that's awesome. You're standing against oppression. Good. Like, but I didn't even think of it. They're like, you didn't think you're on Flag lines in your hand and you're doing, they really came at me. And remember, I was a darling before this. And now they were attacking me hardcore. Like they came in with the pressure. And I started shaking. I was crying. They're like, you need to get off Flag lines now. You've broken our rules because the media could be outside and we have OTs here. We have OT confidential material. How dare, like they really wanted to punish me and they did. And I begged them. I was crying. Please don't let me leave. I was like, what about my husband and my kid? Like they're like, I have to go to a hotel room somewhere off. Like I was freaking out.
They were
And
literally like, get off the base.
like now, get off the base.
Oh
And
my God.
Aaron, it was so bad. I'm surprised that I still stayed in Scientology after that. When I look at it, I'm like, damn, girl. But I was just, I don't know what it was. I thought I have to prove myself to them, and I didn't go through all this just to leave. And I thought it's flag. I don't understand. CC. They said you can go to. I said, where am I supposed to do service? I'm about. They're like, go back to CC. We'll put a program for you. And I got them to tell me not to leave that night. They wanted me to leave that night because I started hyperventilating. I had a panic attack, and they shoved me in the presence office. They're like, okay, fine, you can stay here tonight.
Stories like this for me illustrate that for so often you'll hear people say celebrities have their own set of rules. They live in a different reality in Scientology. And I go on the fringes. That's true. Okay. They're treated nicer. They're treated better. They get their own saunas. They get their own course rooms. But when it comes down to core ethics and core tech, everyone's treated the same, except maybe Tom Cruise. I don't know. Maybe John Travolta. I don't know.
I think they've come down on those guys too.
I think so too. I mean, look, they don't let John on his OT levels, Joy. They don't let John.
They don't let him on his OT levels.
He's never passed OT3.
Oh my God. I met him at Flag. He was so sweet.
He can't stop having sex with dudes, and he won't leave Scientology.
Exactly. That's his dark secret. And then I think Tom Cruise's dark secret is he's very perverted. He likes perverted sex. He likes, he's kinky and whatnot. I don't know. Are they pooping on him? I don't know. But he has some kind of weird kink that is going against Scientology. And why do you think this evil cult would put such hardcore ethics on people when they don't even follow it themselves? That's also the weird thing, because
it's because David Miscavige is an incel.
I believe that.
Yeah.
It's a control.
It's because David Miscavige is a 65-year-old man who's slept with one woman in his entire life, and he couldn't even get her to marry him for 2 years in the Sea Org, which in the Sea Org is unbelievable, right?
They'll marry you in a couple weeks. In the Sea
Dave
Org.
and Shelley went out for like 2 years before they ever got married, and then he shipped his wife off. And it's because David Miscavige is an incel that he's obsessed with other people getting action.
It's so much obsession on sex and masturbation, and it's so twisted and evil. That's why I say have compassion for current Scientologists, because they are under the thumb of their ethics officer who reports all the way up lines. We, as celebrities, under the thumb of OSA, Office of Special Affairs. I mean, if I farted without, a CSW and they would get on me, it was so intense that I had to think of things to say to get out of so many of these situations. It was a part-time job. And then it became a full-time job when I started studying full-time. And I was always like, I can't, and you can't think badly about them, because you're like, well, these are Sea Org members and they just don't understand me, this individual person. I've been like tortured to tears mentally by ethics officers. One time I had a flight I had to catch, and I was at CCN to go to an event. And I told them I'll do this ethics, handling but I have a flight the next morning. And so they kept me there the whole day, and I was staying at the Celebrity Center, and I had moved out at one point and lived in my own apartment in West Hollywood, but this was when I rented another room at my own expense. I'm staying there. I'm doing this ethics program. This is a couple years later. And I had a flight to catch the next morning. They knew it. They were okay with it. My ethics officer, Rebecca Ferguson, that was her at the time. Rebecca Ferguson, this British woman. She was so mean to me. She was so cruel to me. This is after I got divorced. So it got really bad after I divorced my ex-husband, because it was like, you don't divorce a powerful rich. Like Elena Cardone can never divorce Grant. Scientology will help Grant destroy her. She is never, it doesn't matter if he beats her, doesn't matter if he cheats on her. You are not allowed as a Scientologist wife of a powerful, rich, donating, influential Scientologist who has children in the Sea Org. That was my ex-husband. I was, and I didn't know that. I was like, listen, it's not working. We tried it. It's not working. And he was a lot of infidelity, a lot of things. And I said, listen, I have nothing against him. I just don't want to be married to him anymore. This is, and they came down so hard on me. And again, I always would try to outwit them with the tech. I'd say, LRH doesn't talk about divorce. What do you mean we can't get divorced? Anyways, another thing. So I was already divorced. She came down so hard on me. I was crying. She says, you have to get your lower conditions signed. There was nobody in the org. I had to leave to a flight the next day, like at 6 a.m. I had to leave to get to the airport, LAX. Nobody was at the org. It was 9:30 p.m. and the org already closed at 9. And she said, you have to get these conditions signed off. And there was one guy in there who didn't speak English. And it was so bad. I was like, please sign my conditions. It's like, oh, no English. And so I was going around, and you can't have Sea Org members sign your conditions. It has to be public. Yeah, because it have to be at your level. It was psychological torture. And I was crying. I finally went to the MA, the main MA. I said, I need to talk to the lead MMA. And I was like, because I'd always be shaking and having these panic attacks, and they'd be like ushering me into a room, nobody can see it. I'd be like, I have to get to a flight. Please, nobody will sign it. Please let me go. Please. I was begging them. And finally, she made it sound like it was the ethics officer's problem. And I saw her like through the window cussing her out in the it's in a basement too. The ethics officers, ethics room is in a basement in CCN. Yeah. So you're like in this closetless or windowless room. But through, you can see when they take it to the back room, she took her staff, and I saw her look like she was cussing her out, like coming down on her, like, hey, this is a celebrity and this is a public person, because I could see it. And she came out and she signed off my conditions, because I had like 6 signatures and it wasn't enough. And I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And the only reason I could see, there's no ethics there. That was control. That was manipulation. But she was acting on her own, apparently, because once I finally said something, she got in trouble. So I would always think it's individual. These think, oh, it's her problem. And ours. I was like, she's out ethics. It's her. It's not, but it's Scientology. They make you do that. That woman had to do this for hours and hours. She had to throw me under the bus so she could get her stats up, right? It's a sick system. So I'm not mad at those people anymore. I'm not mad at anyone now that I've come out of this cult, because I'm like, they're all manipulated. They're all deceived. They're all victims.
Yeah.
It's true. Pray for them to leave. We have to help them leave. So when they come out, the ex-Scientology community is a welcoming place. Hey, we're the happy ones. We're not Scientologists. We're happy. We're free. Come on over to our side. We have cookies, We
have cookies.
Yeah.
So I don't, when I look back at everything that happened in the Sea Org and at Flag and on staff at PAC, I really don't hold pretty much anything against anyone they did in the Sea Org, because we were all there doing the same thing for the same reasons. There's a few handful of Sea Org members who really seem to take pleasure in hurting people.
Yeah, for sure. There are sadistic ones.
And I don't even blame Scientology for those people being so horrible. I blame those people for being horrible people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Most Scientologists, even most Sea Org members, are there because they think they're doing the right thing and helping.
And they're beautiful people, most Scientologists. Loving people who want to help you, who are deceived and pressured themselves.
Yeah. And so when they told you, get off the base right now and we'll send you back to CC or whatever, is that what happened? Did you
I begged them and they let me stay overnight. And then the next morning we flew to CCNs. I was devastated. This was the most, I thought, I was devastated. This was, I was the golden girl in Scientology, from going clear to, getting a lot of people in. I was an FSM that was a lot, lauded as an FSM. I ended up getting at least 100 people in, because more than 100, but I got the 100 people, FSM.
Did you get power FSM status?
No, because you have to get 100 people in within 1 year. I got 100 people in over the years, over 100 people, but I would have had to dedicate it too much of my life for power FSM status. I was like, dang, those people, I was like, oh, whew. But Celebrity Center had their own levels of FSM. And so I was like power FSM for Celebrity Center, right? But not for the whole. To get 100 people in 1 year, you have to really, and to keep them in, it's like, dang.
Well, that's where
I would get 20, I would get 5 to 10 people. Okay, signing up for Scientology services, I definitely got over 100 people to sign up for services. But per year, to get them to come in and do a communication course, or that's a course, that's a service. But to do the free the Oxford and the OCA
personality test,
I probably got at least 50 people a year on OCAs easily, because I just bring them in, and so I was very loved and respected for my volunteer work and helping, because I did that when I was broke and not a celebrity. And before I was on staff, so I'd have to work and hustle. And then when I became a celeb, it was like all I had to do was keep doing that, and people would come. They'd use me on all their posters and put me on all their campaigns. I'd speak at their free little like talks on how to be a celebrity, and so I was their poster girl. They were very sweet to me, cups of coffee and dinners, and letting me. They treated me really like family at CCN. So that was what I thought Scientology was. They did coddle me, but also that's what a church should do. Like, I mean, why would we want a church to not treat us like that? That's how it's supposed to be, community center. But then when I got on flag lines and I made that first major mistake, I was persona non grata. I had to go back to CCN with my tail between my legs. The president's office were like, let's get you through this ethics program, which again took months to even get. I had to keep asking, when is my program out? So I'm spending all this money and like pulling my hair out going, how can I fix this? I'm a bad person. I'm in lower ethics on Scientology and trying to run my career and be a good wife and a stepmom. It was insanity.
It sounds like absolute insanity. And so when you're doing all the media stuff, when they know you're going to political events or political rallies, or when you're going on Fox News, was there no like sit down with the president's office and do coaching on like how involved were they in prepping you for press and media?
Good question. So OSA was supposed to prep me, but CC Int ended up prepping me the most. They said, you need to do pro TRs to help you. So I did it. That's what got me to train, is like they closed me on training a lot. But that was just it. Just do pro TRs and train a little bit. And then they would sit me down and they would drill me. They're like, let's do drillings. But I also didn't like it. I didn't like being handled. I was like, you guys know me. I'm just Joy, like let's not try to pretend like I'm some A-lister. Like, let's chill. Like, it's just, it's just an interview, and I've done this for years. And like, I was also kind of like, don't tell me what to do. And I'm still like that. I don't like to be handled and coddled. Like, I don't like it when I go into the recording studio and there's like 5 people there helping you get ready. I'm like, no, just chill. I'm an artist. I don't like to do that. So it would be very weird that all of a sudden there was like 5 or 6 handlers around me at all these events. And I would kind of laugh it off, but they were very interested in what I would say, how I would say it. And they would drill me. And I was like, oh, I guess this is media training to help me.
So I'm curious, were they, in my mind, I'm thinking of 2 different forms of drilling. There's how to answer questions about Scientology itself. And then there's how to respond to like scandalous, controversial Black PR type stuff.
Oh yeah.
What did they seem to focus on more?
Scientology. They didn't care about the scandalous stuff. When that happened, it was all my fault, right? Like,
no, here's what I mean. Did they ever say, hey, if you get asked about Danny Masterson, this is what you should say?
Oh no, because that would be Black PRing Danny Masterson.
Well, I think
they would never mention that, because in Scientology,
you mean it would be Black PRing it to you, Black PRing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to me, I mean, they would, you know what I mean? They would be putting more attention on Danny Masterson. I didn't know Danny. I knew Alana, but because everybody in there in the course room and stuff. But when that trial was happening, I didn't know about it. I wasn't Googling Scientology. I knew something was going on, but they would have never brought it up to me unless I knew him or I brought it up.
So they never sat down with you and is like, by the way, if you get asked about Lisa McPherson, this is what you say.
I didn't even know about Lisa McPherson. So you see, if they did that, they would be telling me they would be giving legitimacy. That's what I mean by Black PR. They'd be granting legitimacy to listen, everything. I became, a DPTSer. I was trained, and you're trained to say the media lies. All of that is lies. If I brought it up, they would have had something to weave and deceive to cleverly get me out of it, to say, oh, no, that's not true. The media is lying.
So they never gave you some sort of responses to typical media lies about Scientology pack or drilling session or something like that?
No, but they would say how to handle Scientology is say, like, if they ask you, they make it general. They would say, if they say something, then just tell them, if they say stuff like this, then bring up this. But they wouldn't bring up the the bad news, if that makes sense. So they'd be like, okay, somebody
Interesting.
says, somebody says something negative about Scientology. That's the most they would say. Somebody says something negative about Scientology. Somebody brings up an SP lie, right?
Right.
That's what they would say. They don't
So
tell you the specifics. Now, I don't,
that
that's how I
actually makes
understand
sense.
it.
That makes sense.
They might have
Did
handled
they
other people differently.
did they ever say anything to you about if you get asked about Shelley Miscavige?
Hell no. They wouldn't bring up Shelly. Aaron, that would make them look like, no way.
Had you ever heard of Shelley Miscavige?
Had I ever heard of her? Honestly, no.
The fact that you even had to
within-
think about it.
No, I didn't hear about her until after. I was like, what's the first time I heard of Shelly? Maybe I'd heard of her, but it was like, okay, who cares? A Sierra member, like David Miscavige's wife, like she's in the back offices or something. Like I didn't think that. So, and people would ask me the after, didn't you ever see all the anti-Scientology stuff? No, because every time I would even mention a slight joke and a degrading, that's 12 and a half more hours intensive. That's another $5,000. My bank account, I don't care how much money when I made in my career at the most, I didn't want to spend that. I'm like, let me just play a good girl. Let me be good.
Well, you know, it's funny. What just occurred to me is like, I could imagine you being pulled in to the ethics office and they're showing you all these tweets about you in Scientology. And you're like, I'm not supposed to see that shit. Don't show it to me.
Totally. I was like, why are we even, I would say that in my defense, I'm like, I don't read those. I don't know about what they're talking about. No, I would speak up. I'd be like, I don't know that. No, they would never say Xenu, but I would see it on my socials. People be like Xenu. I mean, that's like such a troll, but it doesn't help anybody get out of Scientology.
When
like,
you saw people talking about the Xenu stuff,
I thought they were crazy. I thought
you thought they misunderstood Scientology, right?
Of course. And listen, had I been cornered, like Grant Cardone in interviews where people bring up stuff like that, absolutely. But I was also very good. Like Mike Rinder, when he master manipulator of the press and negotiator, like he was so PR trained, right? When he was in the Sea Org, and they were like, and he was like, I've never seen any abuse. And then he's telling that story in the aftermath, and he's like, I literally just got my butt beat by David Miscavige. Like 3 days before, I just got abused. But then he's like bald face, looking you in the camera, like I've never seen. And you're like, I believe this guy. That's how we're trained. You are trained to handle the press, whatever they say, but they don't tell you specifically what they're going to say. But it doesn't matter what they say.
Right.
I have my 5 things. I know what to say, and I know what they're. And then anything they say, I'd be like, I've never seen anything about aliens in Scientology. There's nothing, because I didn't at that point. I never had. I mean,
right.
Besides past life stuff, right?
But, right. Past life stuff.
But here's what's interesting. And even if I was, I would have lied.
Right.
It's
but check this out. Because here's the difference between Grant Cardone, OT8, being asked on camera with a channel that's got millions of subscribers about Xenu, is he knows it's real. And so he's instantly, hey, yeah. Hey, I'm not here, but I'm here. But if you, as someone who had not done the OT levels, if you had been in an interview where they start talking about Xenu and the volcanoes and the hydrogen bombs,
and I have been in those,
but you wouldn't even know to interrupt them because you don't even know it's real OT info. How would you respond to that in that situation?
Well, I would have known that they're coming up with some SP suppressive BS. Anything they say, right? So they talked about things like the forced abortions in the Sea Org. I had an interview that they talked to me about that. It was hard. I was sweating. I was like, and they didn't tell me they were going to do it. They're like, we just want to ask about your politics, your political. When I was going to run for office, the eyeglass was very strict on me with the media, as it should be, and I'm grateful. But the Daily Wire, I flew to the office, and I was just flying into that. I was on Good Morning America. I was doing all kinds of media and press tour to do it. And, that's what I excel at, talking off the rip, doing this. And so they would never say they're going to talk about Scientology. Of course not. But then they would, and I would be like, okay, time to put your guard up, time to listen. And this lady, I forgot her name, but she was like a blonde, 25-year-old, is like hammering in with in Germany and reading the facts and the abortions. You claim to be pro-life, but the forced abortions. And what I would do is I'd just be like, what's your sources? I knew how to debate. I'd be like, tell me your actual sources. I've been in Scientology for X amount of years, whatever, at that time. I have never seen that. I know personal Sea Org members, they would never allow that. How dare you, right? You just throw it back in their face. And most media crumble under a celebrity who could walk out of the interview, who knows her stuff. Most people think I'm dumb. I've heard you say, I've heard a lot of people, I don't take it personal.
I didn't say
People
you were
think,
dumb.
no, but it's okay. A lot of people
Okay.
just see the pictures and they're like, oh, she's a lot more intelligent than I thought. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. How could I last in this industry being an idiot airhead? I'm not, thank God. But it's not to boast of myself, because I honestly don't care. And if you see a picture, you might think I'm stupid. It's okay. But and people would underestimate me. And I actually loved that. And I'll admit, I felt a bit of sick pleasure when they would talk about Scientology and I'd be able to just like, yeah, you think you're going to get me? And I would twist it and move it. And I was very much in my flesh and very much into my status, me, very narcissistic, very like, I can handle this. And Scientology fed into that. They told me I was a god. I'm going to show you what a god I am. And thank Jesus that he healed me of this. I had to go to the lowest points. I had to get my ass handed to me, because I would have never left that satanic cult had I not gotten so bad, had I not wanted to die, had I not called out for Jesus. And he healed me. I don't have those thoughts anymore. Literally. I don't have this. And I go, oh my gosh, I don't have depression anymore. I don't have this anguish, this tape recorder constantly telling me, like, I'm actually clear, right? And like, it's crazy. It's everything that they sold me they would give me was free in my salvation. So for me, my testimony is, yeah, and I was a jerk in those moments. Absolutely. I was full of myself,
Yeah. No,
I
I
can
get
never
it.
do it myself, because I didn't save myself from this. And I did a lot of damage when I was in Scientology. So sharing my weaknesses and my vulnerability is my way also of being like, listen, there's no way you've not gone too far that you can't get out and get redeemed. And that's what I love to do. I mean, tons of people have emailed me telling me they're in now, they're trying to get out, but their parents, they don't want to get disconnected from their kids. It's a real thing. I see what you guys deal with in the ex Scientology community. And I'm like, thank God I can be a voice to share what I went through. Because what's the point of going through all that if I can't share it and help other people avoid it and get out of it?
Totally. I totally agree. Everything that you've said about your experience, well, basically being told you're not welcome at Flag anymore. We'll get you this program, kept you waiting for so long. I'm glad you mentioned Africa, because I didn't know that was part of your story. I was eventually going to ask you how the hell you wound up at St. Hill. But
Yeah.
so connect these dots for me. So you get sent back to LA, you're doing the CC stuff. What's with Africa? What's with St. Hill? And what's the sequence there?
Yeah. So then this thing happened. I don't know if you remember it. It's called COVID-19. Did you?
I live in Florida. We didn't have that.
Well, it's true, because Florida, I'm only 2 hours away from you. I'm in Ocala, Florida.
Yeah, I know.
I love Florida's the best. And I love the work that you're doing in Clearwater too. And then you guys at SP Foundation.
We have fun.
It's great. It's keep doing it, But during COVID, I had a psychotic break. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's working. I don't know what's happening. The death feeling and the worst feelings got worse. So I said, of course I have to do what they tell me, Scientology, and they're going to take Scientology away. And all the fear tactics they told us. So I went to work at the Stacey Francis Foundation, which she was my dear friend, Stacey Francis. Also, I talk about it in my book a lot. People who would speak up and try to whistleblow to me, and I would push them away. People would tell me, listen, you can't be a Christian. Some people within Scientology, active Scientologists, were playing the system and knew, and they would try to talk to me like, they're on your ass for that. And I'd be like, no. Because I was very religious about Scientology. I was very dedicated. And I was like, I can't have an overt about thinking about L. Ron Hubbard that's going to come up in session or doubting it, right? I was very brainwashed and welcomed it at some point because of my past with trauma as well. So I was just like, but now I sit there and I'm like, damn, there's so many people who tried to talk to me. So there was a few of those. I won't say everyone's name, and then they said, go to South Africa. And it was a lot more relaxed. So I went to South Africa. There's the AO out there.
But why did they tell you to go to South Africa?
Oh, just I love to travel, get out of America. Everything was on lockdown in America. I couldn't. I was on lockdown. I couldn't do Scientology unless I was in the bubble.
I'm just trying to connect the dots, though. You said during COVID, well, you mentioned that you had a psychotic break during COVID. You also mentioned going to work for the Stacey Francis Foundation. And then they said going to Africa. Was going to Africa because of what was the psychotic break in Africa? Was it in
It was
LA?
before, it was in Los Angeles.
Okay,
And
okay.
then from there, I was just like, well, I mean, I was talking to, my FSM, and I also never really had an FSM because
Mm,
I FSM myself into Scientology at the,
mm.
Celebrity Center. I walked in. And I always thought, I was like, these FSMs, and they're making money off it, and they're not really helping. So, but I had some people who come in as an interim FSM. And at the time, there was interim FSMs telling me, you should go to South Africa. There's a charity. And Stacey's like, you can volunteer at my charity. It'll help
Oh, her
you.
charity's in South Africa.
It is. Yes. Sorry
Okay,
if I
okay.
didn't say that. The Stacey Francis Foundation is in South Africa, right outside
Weird.
Cape Town. Yeah.
Weird.
Well, yeah. I mean, South Africa was booming with Scientology. It is now.
Because of
Unfortunately,
the
there's a
castle,
lot.
because the new AO.
Oh, yeah, that it's huge out there. They have full government okay to use Scientology courses in schools. You didn't,
Huh.
Aaron, it's massive out there. That's the next
Really?
big thing. If flag goes down, Scientology will be South Africa. That's the next flag. Oh, yeah,
Wow.
it's known. This isn't like I think they told us that. They told us that. There's LRH references where he says the next great civilization will come out of South Africa. Oh my gosh, do they take advantage of those poor African people out there who are smart and amazing? And Scientology just goes everywhere and they feed them there. They do all the things that you should do as a church that they don't do in America. They bribe them with food, with bus tokens. I volunteered as a staff member working at the Church of Scientology, the Class 5 org. I was there in their Div 6. I was the PES because
Which
they
org?
didn't have anybody at Joburg org, Johannesburg,
Wow.
where the Joburg sec check comes from. Amazing org. It's the first Ideal org. It was started in 2003. So before even the huge Ideal org push. And South Africans are rebels. They're like pirates. So it's very cool out there. They do Scientology, but they're also a very Christian, very family oriented. They're like America in the 70s.
Who is?
South Africans and their culture. So
Oh,
when Scientology came in, they really did it like, oh, it's a church, it's a community. And South Africans don't have the doubt of Americans. They're not like, oh, right. They're South Americans have more of a guard about Scientology, thankfully. But when we were proselytizing, it was like, oh, but Americans are more guarded. South Africans have their guard down. Like literally, this
interesting.
was talked
You found
about.
them to be more receptive, like
Oh,
raw public
way
there to
more
be more
receptive.
receptive.
Yes, they're more
Huh.
like welcoming. They're opening. And me, I look like a South African. They loved me. They're like, "Oh, sister, tell us what you're doing. Oh, sister." And so they embraced me. And I love the South Africans. I ended up staying there for a year instead of the 3 months, almost a whole year.
Did they send you there to do an ethics program? Did they send you there because the sex checking was cheaper with the exchange rate? Like, or was it just were they sick of you and like get her out of the country? She's going to run for Congress.
No, because by then I'd stopped my campaign right in 2019, and then I ended up getting divorced. I was always causing trouble. I was always doing my own thing, but I was still very well loved within it. But the pressure was tough. But when COVID happened, the pressure was so tough. I had to do a 2 weeks quarantine, 2 weeks at my own expense, staying at either the Celebrity Center or the hotel right next to it, which they had bought. They had an apartment complex that's now a Sea Org run facility for, it's an apartment. So I ended up renting the apartment because I wanted a full kitchen, but I didn't want to spend as much as I was like, I'm going to end up saving some money. It's COVID, right? I lost a lot of money not being able to tour and sing and do film stuff. Everything was halted in my industry. So I was very much like, okay, now I've got to just do my preps, finish my OT preps. I was still mid a sec check. I was always mid a sec check, Aaron, I actually did finish my OT preps at St. Hill. I got my certificate. I was dancing. I was laughing. I was smiling. I was like, finally, I still never got on my OT levels. I ended up leaving.
So you finished your preps twice.
Yeah, I did. Exactly.
Wow.
And trust me, I fought to that point. I was like, but I said, well, yeah, but some things have come up and they always use COVID. And it was always a money grab. I can see now. And it was so crazy. I was stuck at CCINT and I was just like, this is crazy. I'm not going to be able to finish. And I'm in this bubble and you can't leave. I was like, this isn't realistic. So then my friend said, just go to South Africa. It's cheaper. You'll be able to finish your preps and you'll have more fun. And by the way, here's a charity I run. So you can have fun there, like helping, and it'll help you get on your OT levels. She said she started that charity just to get on our OT levels. And please don't send her hate because she still is in Scientology, unfortunately.
She said that to you?
She did. I mean, that's why that they just at a certain point, she's also a celebrity, right? So at a certain point, You just want to get on your OT levels. And I'm sure that once you get on your OT levels, you just want to stay on your OT level. They got you. They got you. And then once you're on your OT levels, you want to still be as an OT. I mean, once you get to OT 8, like the fun is done for them. So I don't think they really are passing a lot of people to OT 8. I think, and I know that because I was in there and every single person had to do their training. By the way, all Scientologists are told to do their training. This was at least 2 years ago when I was heavy on lines. Unfortunately, Aaron, I have to go. I would love to come back.
Right now you do?
I do have to go. I have another call. I'm so sorry.
Louise. Oh, we haven't even scratched the surface. All right, we got to do this again then.
Yes, please. Can we do another part 2? And I
yeah.
will gladly make the time to do a part 2.
Absolutely. Okay, well, before we go, let me share once again Joy's YouTube channel right here. And then you guys can pre-order her book, From Scientology to Christ, The Escape They Never Wanted Me to Make. All righty. Okay, I'll let you go, and then I'll tackle some of the comments that have been started.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely come back and answer any questions and continue the story. Man, it's really nice to talk to you too. I appreciate it.
You too, Joy. Thanks for coming on, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, bye.
See ya. All righty. Now a lot of these starred comments here probably were for Joy, but let's just see. Let's just go through some of these. Ductus exemplo. Joy has come a long way from where she used to be. A way to go, Joy. Abigail says her interview with Natalie was awesome. I can't wait to see how this one is done. Aaron and Natalie have such different styles after all. Okay, let's see. Degraded daughter Alicia, congratulations on getting out of Scientology. Welcome to the prison planet. Arkansas Flamingo, so glad you are out and that you are speaking out. Joy Avila. Alicia says, it's interesting that they say you can be both Scientology and any other religion. And growing up, I definitely went to regular churches with friends, Catholic and Christianity-based churches. Super interesting. Constance, oh my God, they get punished for Aaron and the others' tweets. I learned something new. Yes, I actually would not have guessed that either, and it makes me doubly all the more dedicated, at least doubly dedicated, to bringing as much heat onto Grant Cardone as is humanly possible. Let's keep that guy wrapped up in sec checks. But he's already OT8, right? So it's not like they can hold over his head that they're not going to let him on to the next level. If anything, he would probably love it if people would stop coming up with more things for him to do. So we're probably just doing him a favor by giving him so much heat online. All right, let's see. Yes, D. Maurice says it's all sounds like an abusive relationship. You're never right. That's right. She said you're, not. Yeah. Yeah, she was. Yeah, it's wrong if it's too little. It's wrong if it's too much. It's wrong if you do. It's wrong if you don't. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Gabrielle says, they don't want you in a high profile political position because you bring too much attention to Scientology. Absolutely. Constance June, at one time years ago, Alfred Johnson had a Baptist church in California. I don't know if he still does. So in Scientology, Alfred Johnson was already always described as a Baptist minister. And I was never aware of a specific church that he had, but that doesn't mean he did not have one. Okay, Animal Audit Corner. If Scientology is non-political, then why are they safe pointing them? I'm confused. Okay, I mean, I can address this one. So safe pointing is just making allies out of people who are in positions of power, so that they will not basically lead some sort of negative action against you. Making an ally out of someone who has political power is not the same thing as overtly being political, taking a political stance. So Scientology would want to safe point politicians on both sides of the aisle. They just want people to like them. That is a little different than actually being an activist politically and taking a stance and advocating for certain political positions. Okay, let's see. Reprise 53. What if David Miscavige subconsciously wants to hold Scientology down and small? Because the bigger it gets, the harder it will be to control single-handedly. That would be interesting. It doesn't ring true to me. I think Scientology being shrinking and small creates more problems for David Miscavige. It's a lot of work to try to trick all the people all the time. And if Scientology was expanding and had good stats, I feel like David Miscavige's life would be simpler. That's just how I see it. Okay, let's see. Lovey Cats, great interview. Aaron and Joy, thank you for sharing. And I'm seeing a bunch of questions for Joy, which obviously I cannot answer. Let's see. Oh, yes. Lots of questions here that I would have liked to have gotten to, and we'll get to in the next interview. Liz, Gail. Hi, Joy. Hi, Aaron. This is a fun collab. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we didn't even scratch the surface. We could have spoken for 4 or 5 hours. I'm telling you right now, because I mean, honestly, we didn't even scratch the surface. But I thought it was a great conversation, and we'll do it again soon. Okay, let's see. At Ken's channel, love your interviews. Glad that you're out. Hopefully people read our chat, read OT3, and save themselves $500,000. Kimberly in Japan, the chemistry is awesome. Thank you both. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, and thank you for being a channel member for 12 months. That is fantastic. Joseph Zollner. Zollner. I'm a survivor of a different cult, and this interview is ultra triggering and triggering my empathy. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Joe, and thank you for watching and joining the live chat. Okay, this looks like this might have come in on Joy's channel, I think. Deslov, Act M, and Carrie. Keep fighting. Working, but I will catch a rerun. Professor Kakan, greatest interview ever. Thank you, Professor Kakan. Okay, let's see. The bipolar astrophotographer Joy Villa speaking out is my favorite thing right now. And I like this. Lisa Kelson. I love it when Aaron and Natalie interview the same person. It really covers all sides of a person's story. Joy Villa is simply amazing. Honestly, the whole thing of her getting kicked out of Flag and pulled off of Village because of the Corey Lewandowski incident, that's absolutely mind-blowing to me. I can barely even believe that that's how they handled that situation. My goodness. And that they told her that one of the biggest problems is you sound like a victim. It's like, okay, but what if somebody victimized you? Like, so not only can you not report Scientologists to the authorities, but you can't even report famous people like non-Scientologists to, honestly, the press. And this is actually what I meant to say when Joy was speaking earlier, is that story was going to run with or without her. Politico already had the story. They were going to run that story regardless. And then to be like, Joy, how dare you? The press could show up here to Flag, and we have the OT levels here. It's like, it doesn't even make sense, honestly. It's like, okay, who cares if the OT levels are here? The press can't get into the advanced org. Like, what does that have to do with anything? It's incredible. All right. Skyfire. This interview was so amazing because it's a different viewpoint when people don't have to self-edit just to be understood. Yes, absolutely. Jeffrey Augustine. L. Ron Hubbard taught PR how to effectively outflow false data. Yeah. L. Ron Hoya Bembe is the way. Little inside joke. Ken's channel, Roger Clark on Quora boasts how South Africa is booming. That's something that would be interesting to dig into a little bit more as well, because one of the main reasons South Africa is booming, if we want to say that, I don't know if it's totally true, but is because it's the cheapest place to do your OT levels in the entire world. It's cheaper than the advanced orgs that currently exist where you can do your OT levels are AOLA in Los Angeles on L. Ron Hubbard Way, Flag in Clearwater, Florida, St. Hill, England, Copenhagen, Denmark, Sydney, Australia, and the Ship. That's it. Those are the advanced orgs. Except It's now in South Africa at Kiliami Castle. That's the advanced org. That's the newest advanced org in Scientology. And it's the cheapest place to do your OT levels because of the currency exchange and the pricing and the currency exchange. And so a lot of American and European Scientologists who can't afford to do the OT levels at normal rates will go to Africa. And even for the cost of travel and accommodations, and even possibly closing your business down for the time that you have to go to make the trip, it is still cheaper. Isn't that incredible? But it's just another example of Scientology cannibalizing itself. Like, all the business that the South African advanced org is getting is business that should be going to another advanced org. It's not organic demand. Like, it's not like the advanced org of South Africa is there because there's so much demand for Scientology in South Africa. They're pulling Scientologists from all over the world to go there. And that is not how it's supposed to be. If you're an American, it should be cheaper for you to go to LA and do your OT levels than it would be to fly to South Africa and do them there. But that's just the way that it is. All right, guys, we are going to we're going to end it here. I got more coming later today. Stay tuned. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, Nancy, my love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right